You're listening to Crazy Shit in Real Estate. You'll be amazed at all these wild but true situations that others have found themselves in. Because on this show, you'll hear uncensored, unbelievable stories from the world of real estate. I'm Leigh Brown. Let's dive right in.
I'm Leigh Brown, and while you don't recognize the backdrop, this is Crazy Shit in Real Estate. I am in a cinder block office at Hillbush Ford, my favorite dealership here in Kannapolis, North Carolina, while they work on my car, because as a realtor, I need tools to make my job happen. One is my car. The second one is my VA loans to take care of my veterans. I'm very excited for our special guest today, Deputy Director of the Veterans Administration Home Loan Program, John Bell. John's going to answer some questions for us about what's happening in the VA loan program. Get your notebook, get your pen, and get your fingers ready to ask questions in the comments, and I'll see you on the other side. Obstacles measure the depth of our desire and test our true commitment to our goals. I think that's appropriate for a realtor talking to the VA, John Bell. Welcome back to the show.
Thank you, Leigh. Thank you so much. And yes, that hits the nail right on the head.
But do we have obstacles? Honestly, that's always a yes. I think we're just in a different set of obstacles right now that can be overcome. And I think the depth of our desire, yours and mine, how do we serve our veterans in their pursuit of the American dream? And what's our true commitment? Well, it's showing up on my podcast again. You definitely are committed if you're willing to come back into the lion's den over here.
Look, I know that we are both committed to putting people in the right homes and giving our veterans every option that they have in which to purchase a home. So I am always game and love the back and forth, and hopefully we can solve some more and tear down some of these misperceptions of the VA home loan program for the realtor community out there.
And friends, if you don't know, there is a episode 1 with John from 2 years ago, or maybe 3. It was in the heart of the COVID era. So click on that if you want to go hear some of what John's wisdom was. We talked a lot about disabled vets and some of the special programs that are available. So it's really good information. But John, for anybody that didn't meet you before, you want to give them a quick insight on who you are, what you do, and why you've shown up on my show today.
Surely, thank you so much. John Bell. I am the Executive Director of the VA Home Loan Program. We are a 1LGY, which basically is all of Loan Guarantee employees, and all the work reports up to me across the country. So we did that about 2-3 years ago so that we could get consistent messaging as well as policy out quicker, make decisions, and understand what's needed to progress the program. So we've done a really hard job in going from 1% market share when I joined VA about 10 years ago to now we're almost 14% market share across the country. So
really?
Mortgages, yes.
Well, you can probably take credit for some of that, but I'm old enough to remember I had to send my veterans up to Salisbury, North Carolina to the VA office and get their certificate of eligibility from that old lady named Gladys in the cage. She's like, all right, here's your paper. And it took like 6 weeks to get it, but now you can get it online. So you can take the credit for that, though, because it's definitely a much easier process than it used to be.
That was something that we started working on about 7-8 years ago. And we've gone from 30 days to issue eligibility to now we're issuing 99% within 3 days and 95 point something percent, 95.7, I believe, percent in 24 hours. So we have come a long way in the eligibility issuance process.
And I joke about that, but if you're in real estate, if you have a mentor in this business, they may have given you the horror story that I'm kind of joking about, but was the reality that once upon a time, veterans had to drive to the closest VA facility, request their certificate of eligibility, and then they had to wait weeks and weeks for it to come in writing. And so there was this huge time gap, and that doesn't exist now. So when you hear a lot of the horror stories about dealing with the VA loan, just say question the source, because I have found that it's probably the best performing benefit our veterans have. If they're honorably discharged, this is the one that works. It is easy to utilize and it's efficient. It's actually more efficient than some of the regular loans in the marketplace. So if you're in real estate, don't believe the hype when you hear how awful the VA loan process is, because it is operating well. I just didn't realize y'all had grown to that much of the market. But then again, part of that comes from the realtor population needing to talk to people more about the availability and the accessibility of the program, and overcoming old rumors and old bad habits dies hard. I've got a veteran right now, and she's using Veterans United, which of course is one of the biggest home loan providers in the VA world. And man, they are Johnny on the spot. So it was not too hard to get her under contract on the house, and she's super excited.
Well, we have gotten, just to give you an example, it used to take us 60 days to close a loan. And that was one of the biggest issues or complaints that we would hear from realtors, right? I don't want to wait 60 days when I can just go conventional and have my buyer done in 30 days. At that point in time, I think it was 45 days with the conventional. We're now down to 30.6 business days, or not business, 30.6 days to close in March of 2024, which is one of the lowest in the country of any home loan program out there. So we're very proud of that. 6.8 days to deliver appraisals. There was a time not too long ago, probably 3 years ago, where that was taking us double that time, 12 to 14 days. So again, it's all about making this product more and more sustainable and efficient, because we truly want to be the product of choice for veterans, as well as the product of choice for our stakeholders, right? Of those people that are guiding them through the process of buying that home. We want them to be able to say, why wouldn't you use your VA home loan? Because you already know that it's one of the lowest price options for them out there. 58% of our veterans do not pay a funding fee. They are exempt. That is up from 28% about 8 years ago. So we've come a long way in that department. One of the other biggest things that, Leigh, I know that you talked to me about last time that we really keyed in on from the discussion was about whether or not our VA appraisals met or exceeded the sales price. And 94% of the time right now, we are meeting or exceeding the sales price of that property. One of the best in any home loan program again.
So I have two questions for you on that. I didn't prepare you for them because my mind's just running right now, but you're cool with that. So the first one is, isn't the default rate fairly low on the VA loan as compared to other products? Because that's always a hiccup that is thrown in by naysayers. Oh, well, if somebody zeroed down, if they've got no funding fee, they got no skin in the game and they're going to default, and your rates are very low. Can you confirm that? And that's current right now in 2024?
Actually, another misperception. So on a VA loan, a veteran borrower does not have to put any money down. But what we do know is 20% of our borrowers do put money down. So that's a huge stat. That's just because they want to, and they have the wherewithal to do it. We have one of the lowest foreclosure rates in the industry, and have for historically. We've never been over 1% in our foreclosure rate. And we attribute a lot of that to the strength of the veteran borrower in the community, and how much they are a fabric of moving into a community and becoming part of that community and not wanting to leave. So we see that veteran borrowers are really good bets.
And you forgot to give credit to the realtors for making sure their veterans are buying good houses where they can stay put for a long time. So we are also a good
doubt. We could not do this without the realtor community. I will tell you that while I talk 70% of the times about breaking down these misperceptions, the great realtor community that we have out there that actually does understand the VA home loan program and does help veterans navigate into homes, you can't say enough about. So just like with lending, with lenders, we have really great lenders, and we have some that might not be so great.
Well, they just need more education. Maybe they're only mediocre because they haven't been educated. So if you want to be in the great realtor community, you got to get educated. So here's the second thing I was thinking as you're talking about the appraisal process and how hard you guys have worked to make sure that there's not any unnecessary roadblocks to veterans while protecting their investment, while protecting the federal government's backing on this. Are you guys committed as a department to utilizing certified residential appraisers, or are you falling into the pathway that's looking more at the automated valuation model? And I say that because there is currently a lot of discussion out there that is on the attack of our certified residential appraisers. And I, for one, know how valuable it is to have that extra set of eyes on the property to protect the veteran and to protect the lender. And I'm just not a fan of everything going automated. Where's VA on that?
I am not a fan of everything going automated either, but I am obsessed with this. I am obsessed with giving those appraisers the tools that they need to do their jobs more efficiently and quicker. So whatever I can do, we have what's called an appraisal assisted program. And what that allows the appraiser to do is use external sources to gather information for them as long as they are signing off on the property and signing off on the value, that they can use some of those tools. Some of those tools might be the realtors in which we're talking. Just can't be a realtor part of the transaction. But we certainly encourage our appraisers to use other ways to get information where they're not having to go and travel 20 miles one way and 20 miles another way and 30 miles another way, because it all reduces the time for delivery, but does not upset the quality in which they deliver appraisals.
So then, since the appraisal industry is looking at all these new models right now, there is one that is causing a lot of concern to realtors and to appraisers. So I'm just going to toss this to you for future consideration as you look at regulatory improvements in the program. There is a job function called a data collector, which is a third-party person who goes to do a scan of a house, do the measure, do the photos. Currently, with many of our banks, that data collector does not have to have any kind of a license. And that's not an appraiser's license, not a realtor's license, not a home inspector. It could be Joe Brown, the Uber driver who wants to make $75 on a house. So we have safety concerns for our homeowners who are letting people into their house who may have a colorful background. So my suggestion would be that if data collectors are part of your toolkit for appraisers, that maybe you guys could add in a rule there that they must have some kind of valid license that's applicable to it, just so there's a regulatory body somewhere for the consumer to complain if something goes awry. That's our question in North Carolina is, if a data collector goes rogue, currently with them not having to have any license, the state doesn't have any way to enforce consumer protection. So maybe if that came from a body like the VA, we could say, look, just a license. You don't have to be a realtor or an appraiser, but somebody's got to be able to say you're misbehaving. So can you make that a list item to check into?
Oh, we are checking into it, and you are always a step ahead, and we have the same concerns, right? When you're talking about a veteran borrower in their home, safety and security is one of the most important things that we have, which is why you've seen us be kind of so parental in the whole minimum property requirement issue, right? That realtors bring up quite often. And
we just call that the handrail, just the 2x4 jury rigged handrail. Y'all in FHA, you can't help yourselves.
We can't help ourselves. That is true. But we are learning, and we're trying to determine. I can't talk a lot about it because we just closed the comment period. So we're in a gathering information and before we go back out. So I'm in kind of a gag.
A quiet period. You're in a quiet period.
Exactly.
We don't call it a gag.
Well, we do have that out, and we did ask for the opinion of everyone on what should VA's minimum property requirements look like in the future. So we are dedicated and committed to making sure that when we have a minimum property requirement, that we're not being too parental where we are costing veterans the homes that they really want to purchase.
And that's the biggest reason realtors do get worried about that, because it can prohibit somebody from getting into a property. And that's the last thing any of us want. If any of you are super nerds that want to participate in future comment sections, this one's obviously closed, but there will always be future times to give feedback. I'll include the link in the show notes so you can sign up for alerts to participate with issues like that. Okay, so we may as well talk about the really big question that the realtor community has right now. As we all navigate a structural change in real estate, there's always going to be an opportunity for making things better. And so one of the things that is coming up is there is currently a rule in the VA loan program that veterans cannot pay their own agent, which was designed years ago to make sure veterans weren't paying more than anybody else. They weren't going to overpay, but also because our system didn't have a need for a veteran to pay out of pocket for their agent. As the system shifts and restructures, is the VA working on this process, knowing that the realtor world changes starting in July? And what can you tell our realtors and veterans about the ability for them to navigate these changes?
Yeah, I have not heard that question before today. So you've caught me off guard. No, I'm just kidding.
Well, we're not recording this at 6 a.m., but if we were, you could say it was just that you hadn't heard it before 6 a.m. today.
Exactly. So this is something we're talking about every day, if not every hour. Let me just walk you through the process. So 60 years ago, we have own books in one of our regulations that a veteran that is purchasing a property cannot pay a buyer's agent real estate commission fee. That is in our regulatory guidance, not policy. So if it's a handbook, I can just change handbook, right? That's a policy guidance. I have it within my authority to be able to change. And it's regulatory guidance. You have to go through a regulatory process. We are seeing what options are available to us from a policy standpoint and from a regulatory standpoint to make sure that veterans are not left behind. We're also watching every day what we're looking like from a volume standpoint. Right now, we're 8% above where we were last month, and we are only 8% down total for fiscal year for purchase volume for VA lending, even with rates still at 7%. So we're continuing to watch how this changes as we are working on policy and regulatory guidance and changes moving forward. But yes, we're monitoring it, and we are actually having discussions about what should VA do to make sure veterans are not negatively affected, or realtors are not negatively affected on being able to represent our veteran buyers, because the last thing we want to do is put them, again, not on an even playing field.
And we appreciate that, because one of the things that I should mention for the realtors that don't work in veteran markets very heavily, there is often a change of duty station. And so when you are an active duty veteran or serving serviceman or woman, you're moving from market to market. And the realtors who work those very specific installation markets, they are wildly important to the process. And the last thing we want is for somebody who's leaving Camp Lejeune and going to 29 Palms to find out that they can't have somebody tell them the difference between a North Carolina market and a California market. And that's what realtors provide, is often just that logistical guidance in addition to the neighborhood guidance and the house guidance. It's just so multifaceted. And we don't want our veterans to have to go it alone when they're also managing getting the kids out of school and the spouse changing jobs. And then they're probably dealing with their deployment and everything else. It's just too much. And we want to make sure that if the veteran wants representation, they can stay in the process.
If you are remotely awake, then you know that we are heading into some really tricky economic times. We have home buyers that have put the kibosh on buying. We have sellers who have found out suddenly their houses aren't dipped in 14 karat gold. And as a realtor, you are still trying to keep up with the business you have and trying to answer questions in the meantime, while also managing sky high fuel cost at the pump. Never fear, because my new video course is coming out right now, and it's called How to Dominate During a Recession. I've been a realtor for 22 years. My business went up every year during the Great Recession, and it's all because of education. This course is 4 modules. There might even be some bonus content for you. The price is $199. I am delighted to bring this out as quickly as possible because, friends, there's no time like the present to make sure our neighbors are stronger and we protect the American dream. Click on this link, www.dominatethisrecession.com, and I'll see you there. Now, back to this amazing content.
So my question to you is, do you think it's reasonable and hopeful that this will get corrected before July, when the MLSs, under the terms of the proposed settlement, have to take compensation off the table? Knowing that you don't have a crystal ball and the government doesn't move at the speed of light, do you think the VA will have the ability to move by then?
Here's what I know. What I know is that we are committed to ensuring that if we see veterans are being negatively impacted from purchasing homes, then we're going to do everything within our power, even if that means risk that we have to take, to make sure that doesn't happen. So we are committed, and I think that we have shown that time and time again, that we're committed to make changes to this program as we need to protect veterans and not hinder them from utilizing their home loan benefit.
So does that mean if a practicing realtor watching this show from Fort Hood has a situation where their veteran was negatively impacted, I'm not giving out your information, Do they reach out to their congressman, to their veteran staffer? Do they reach out to the VA? What pathway does somebody take to report back an incident? Because as you and I both know, a lot of times people create a fuss, but they never told us there was something to fix in the first place. And the anecdotes help us fix things. So how do they deliver that information?
It's a great question. You can contact us directly at 877 number. We're now growing up and we now have what's called a ServiceNow customer service online exchange. So you can actually put in a ticket online and someone will contact you back. And that is, again, at our website. So you can go on and do that. That also allows us to keep track and monitor when we need to train, when we need to make policy changes, because we get that on a weekly and monthly basis on how many requests we have gotten on that particular topic. So we're trying to approach this a little bit differently. We are the only agency out there that I know of that has subject matter experts actually answer phones, and we're answering those under 1 minute. So again, feel free to call us. Feel free to submit a ServiceNow ticket, and we certainly would love to hear from you.
Okay, so then I'm going to go back to all the comments on my podcast I did with you a couple years ago, and I'm going to reply with the link to all those disgruntled people who were complaining about their issues with the disabled vet program. And I'm just going to set them loose. So if you see a whole bunch of service links about one particular program, it's my fault. It's not a current glitch. It just might need to be looked at. Okay, so let's ask you questions. So I have a question from the viewing audience, and let me read it to you because it comes from a very respected and long-term realtor in Chattanooga, Tennessee. But I'm not giving his name because I didn't ask permission. But you can say that. You can say go Vols, I guess. The Titans pick somebody good at the draft.
I do often.
Okay.
Go Vols.
He said his area VA lenders said there is no good or easy program for VA construction loans. And just to be clear, they're talking about like Papa has a piece of dirt and son wants to build a house on it, not a production builder mass neighborhood. Please see if they are missing something or if there is a missing element for VA. So what can you tell us about veteran loan programs for new construction? I think that probably also applies to manufactured and modular housing, which is one of the most affordable ways to do something new right now. And Tennessee, I would imagine, says yes to that. So what you got?
Yeah, no, this is not a question that we haven't heard of before. We have actually made a lot of policy changes and have had a few circulars about this on how to overcome this. So I certainly will be happy to share that with you, Leigh, and you can put direct links to those. We also have some national lenders out there that kind of specialize in construction loans. I can't necessarily help that much on the localized because we'd have to do some research in that particular area to do so. So that may take us a little bit longer, but we certainly have done a lot of work. And yes, you can. You can use a VA loan, and we do it all day and twice on Sunday, the VA loan to do construction loans. Now, are they construction loans like a bank? No, because what we need is the value. So normally where you see a VA come in is on that 1-2 close, and we're coming in and we are shoring up from a value standpoint that the property is finished and we can pay off whatever that lien is or whatever that financing is in between. But there are a lot of different options, and what I would say is we'll get you the information on policy chapters. If they have specific questions, please just call us and we'll walk you through it.
Now, the reason I laughed when you said circular, you and I are medium age. The young people don't know what a circular is. That's like a newsletter, people. So there you go. That's an old vocabulary word. But speaking of what the VA can do with new properties, are you guys working on any updated regulations or inspections or such for some of the new housing models that are coming out? There's one that I'm thinking of. It's called Boxable. Have you seen it? Where you can essentially order a house, and I think about it as the old Sears houses from the 50s, except these are basically in segments similar to modular, but it's very small, kind of tiny housey. And we're going to see, I think, more creative housing products come down the pipeline. Are you guys equipped to do VA loans on oddball things like that? Of course, all pending local zoning, infrastructure, water, sewer, those pieces.
So people love hearing me say, if you can comp it, we will do it. A funny story, I'm speaking to a climate group last week, and we were gathering some data and information on some of our unique properties. And so we're looking through it, and the team goes, John, we have, I think it was 590 properties nationwide that were under $75,000. This must be a mistake, and we must have a data issue. And I was like, look at ADU. And so come to find out, they were either tiny homes or they were exactly what you're talking about, where they were the box type properties, or we actually in a certain community that actually could comp out. So we have, as long as you can have comparables and we can value that property out, and it meets zoning requirements, there is nothing that prohibits that property from being a VA loan.
So that means you can do a cost appraisal instead of a comp appraisal if you didn't have any comps. And here's where my mind went. My dad is a Vietnam veteran from obviously a long time ago. He never used his VA loan. And so first time VA loan users get a great deal. And I've got acreage where I would love to put an ADU and put my mom and dad in it, even though they say they're not ready yet. They're ready. And so if can I let my dad use his old unused VA loan to put an ADU on my property? Is that something you would say yes to if we made the numbers work?
Well, again, and you said it first. You said as long as it met zoning requirements, and depending on how much land it's owned, there may not even be any zoning requirements or building requirements out there. So as long as that part works out and we can value it out, that's your hurdle.
Well, the requirement is he has to.
And then you also got to have the water, whether or not it's potable water and those kind of things. And as long as all that works out, yes.
But what I'm really asking, John, is the VA going to step in and tell my county to say yes to this? Because that's what I need. Can we make that part of the VA loan program that you guys?
We certainly will give it our best shot. How about that? But no, we do. It's exciting because I do think, like you do, that we have to prepare in this marketplace, and with climate change, the way climate change is, we need to prepare for different ways to approach how we lend on properties. And we certainly have the opportunity from a VA perspective to finance different types of properties that people probably hadn't even thought of yet.
Well, and I think that's not so much climate change as just the market change, right? So as the markets shift, the supply and demand. But if we're going to look at the fact that nationally we're 10 years behind on supply, it is actually going to take more ADUs and manufactured houses and really cool creativity ideas to fix the problem we have so that we can get the cost to start backing back down. Because until we fix supply, prices aren't going to back down. And that's, of course, the number one thing keeping our veterans out of homes is the sheer unaffordable aspect, which is where I'm glad to be in North Carolina, where we have lots of counties that do have affordable options. And I know that my North Carolina realtors are super committed to making sure our veterans know the program exists. So if you were going to give one piece of information to the public right now, you can talk to the veterans who are trying to figure out real estate. What do you think is the number one feature they never knew about their VA loan program that you wish they all knew about?
Oh my goodness, I got 20.
So you got to narrow it down.
First and foremost is look to what we just did with what's called the VA Servicing Purchase Program. We had a situation coming out of COVID where we had veterans that were at 2.5%, 3% interest rate. They ran into some type of financial impact during COVID. Now they have gotten back on their feet, but instead of allowing for a foreclosure to take place, VA stepped in, created a program where we could save 40,000 of our veterans from going into foreclosure by solving an issue that no one else could solve. And that's, what do you do if you have to do a modification on a loan and the only option out there are market rate? So you would have to take them from a 2.5% interest rate to a 7% interest rate. We solved that. And not only did we solve that, we also were able to save the program $1.5 billion over the next 10 years. So it was a win for the veterans, a win for the government, and a win for the industry. And so that's the way VA works. That's the way we try to help veterans solve issues. and be able to stand on their own 2 feet and overcome financial impact when it occurs.
I love that you mentioned that because I think that's an unheralded benefit of a program like the VA Home Loan Program. It's not just about getting veterans into a home, it's about keeping veterans in their home. And I think this is one of the things that realtors are always counseling people through is let's find a way for you not to sell. Let's figure out how you can stay put because of those very factors that you're mentioning. It may not be affordable to change houses, but also there may be nothing to change into. And then just look at the impact of the stability in somebody's life. Their health care is better when they can stay. Their kids do better when they can stay and they can actually tap that equity one day. So that's a really good top thing to throw out is to say that you want to keep people in their houses, which means that if somebody's listening to this or watching this and you want to know about that program, hit the comments. We'll get you the link back so you can ask questions if you need to find out more. And let's see what else I need to be asking you. There's so many things about VA that are just really good stuff. But I mean, as of somebody who's a pretty frequent critic of the federal government, good job being the agency that saved money and provided solutions at the same time. Is it possible to actually cut costs and help people? What is the VA doing? The rest of the government needs to learn from, John. Good job. High five.
I'll take that any day. I guess the biggest thing that I want to leave you with is if there are issues and concerns, we need to hear about them. And we are the agency that will listen and try to change. If we can make a change and it's a positive and it helps create more opportunity for our veterans, we're going to do it. So instead of just shying away from doing VA loans, no, let's have the discussion and figure out how to solve the issues that are causing you not to want to shout VA from the mountaintops and say, why aren't you using that benefit?
I appreciate that because we have a shortage of servicemen and women in the country right now. So we should be making sure that anybody knows that this benefit is available to take care of those who take care of us. John, thank you so much for coming back on the show and giving us some really good information and hopefully some peace and calm to our people out there who are looking for ways to serve. I'm very grateful to you and very grateful for your time.
Leigh, I'm grateful to you and thank you as always for being such a sounding board for our veterans. So thank you very much.
So what we do, my friend. All right, listeners, viewers, comments below, questions, ask anything. We'll get you to the right resource. Make sure you hit the bell to subscribe and we'll see you next time.
As always, I'm so super thrilled that you joined in for more crazy shit. And if you're a realtor, investor, inspector, lender, or just a regular human being who happens to have an unbelievable story that you need to tell the world about, or frankly, you just need to one-up the story you just heard, then make sure to DM me on Instagram at Leigh Thomas Brown or tweet me at Leigh Brown or frankly any social network where you hang out. I'm there. And if you have some fun, then you totally want to subscribe so you don't miss out on any future episodes.